Yeah. Vainglorious VanGuard.
Knowledge born.
Yeah.
United front.
Tell it.
What you want.
To the Knowledge Radio.
We in here. What you got? Dot.
Work hard as a slave to one day be your savior. The wave unwavering. This is a labor of love. Rise with a purpose every day. Invigorated. If we were on TV, we'd be 10 times syndicated. If we waited for validation, a paycheck or accolades, we'd be starved, already lost or ran away. But when your square solid and your circle too, you don't need a place for silence. The concept is conquered through media, not areas of people activity. A mix that don't lose ethnicity, tightness that don't lose elasticity. Explicitly, this isn't where we give the novice regard. Nah, this is where knowledge is born. Last time that I checked, I'm undefeated. Deliver edicts, can't resist when the gods build and manifest freedom. When lines get crossed, they may push a loss, cause they get handed a check. We kick your can and cancel your cancerous gestures. A prophet vision, precision, the prescription for the sickness is to inoculate your fate with the winning. Arrogant beginnings turn to humble endings. And US with KBA is a win-win. 1K.
Peace and light power family. Welcome to another episode of Knowledge Radio. Place where knowledge is born. This is your host, Knowledge Born Alive. We are definitely honored to have a true warrior and an example of African manhood, African fatherhood, of African husbandry in the building. A cultivator, a miner, a shaper, a motivator, and accountability person in regards to what it means to be race first, to have a race first mentality, and to take it from theory to practice and implementation. So it becomes my honor and privilege at this time to introduce some, present to others, and welcome back to Do the Knowledge Radio, a bold African warrior who accepts no excuses for failure, yet celebrates success. Our brother, Baba Imhotep Fatiu.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Knowledge Born. It's an honor to be back, and it's a privilege to be on this platform because I recognize the work that you're doing and the successes and your efforts in terms of being straight Black and proud of being Black and pushing that and making sure that our people have access to the right type of knowledge that's going to elevate their spirits and transform their minds. And so I'm honored. It's a privilege. I'm happy. I always enjoy my time on this platform, and I'm looking forward to a great show tonight.
It's definitely an old when your Bibles give you some love, because Bibles don't be giving out props like that. You understand what I'm saying? You got to do something in order to get something.
Yes.
I want to start with this real quick, if you could. On page 24, Manhood Creed. I am a protector, provider, and a nurturer of African people. By being a protector, provider, and nurturer of my family, I exist to enhance their existence, to empower them, to empower us. I am an African man.
Yes.
I think that's like a daily mantra right there. They need to be taped on some faces and all of that. You understand? Like, I don't think you can rise without that actualization of your duties and responsibilities. Because many of us think, Baba, that we hear haphazardly, that we hear by happenstance. You understand what I'm saying? That we don't have duties and responsibilities, and especially with the misrepresentation and the infiltration of the quote-unquote dominant culture into our value system. You see that we have devalued our duties and responsibilities, and now they seem optional. You understand? Yeah. So I definitely wanted to start with that strong creed, because this is something that you live by. This is something you can be judged by and accountable by. This manhood. Yeah. If you're a man and you live by this creed, we're gonna be looking for some evidence and demonstration.
And it's interesting you say that, because I'm going to build on that last piece you said. You said evidence and demonstration. And what we need to get across as a people is that manhood must be validated. It must be validated. Like, you don't just wake up and step into manhood and say, I'm a man. But I know in the West, we allow that and we move that way. But realistically, if you look into history and look into culture, you see how a person's manhood is validated because your entire life you're aspiring to be a man. And the men in the community are the ones that sanction your manhood. You must meet the standards that the community have established. If you don't meet the, think about the Zulus among Shaka. If you didn't meet the standards, you wasn't a man by the community standards. And when we understand that, we can begin to check and change some of this buffoonery that's taking place, that's allowed to take place. Because we gotta get out this mess, and the only way out this mess is to return to our way. 100% unadulterated. We must return to our way and remember what it means to be an African.
Profound. I know the journey inward, and I know you spoke on, levels of unification.
Yes.
I was watching something you did a few years back about scientific Pan-Africanism, and the layered effect. There's a pathway back into Pan-Africanism, and this philosophy, this race first philosophy, that you have, brought back to the forefront is a pathway. So I want to go from, thought to application, and from application to mobilization. Where do you begin the process of the reintroduction? Like, how is this process cultivated and shaped into the mind of African people?
So the only way, the best way that we shape it is we are going to have to apply ourselves to a process of study. We can't get around that. I know a lot of us tend to say, well, we don't need to read books. We cannot escape the process of studying to reintroduce ourselves to ourselves. See, in the ignorance of who we are, we don't understand the necessity of placing ourselves first. And let me say that again. In the ignorance of who we are, we do not understand the necessity of placing ourselves first. So that's why it's a struggle to practice race first, because we're ignorant about who we are. So the only process that we can begin with is a process of self-knowledge. We got to study. We got to study. We got to allow ourselves to study. We got to be engaged in deep study, and we got to be humble to the process and willing to allow ourselves to replace ignorance with knowledge so that we may transform from the inside out. Because what has to occur is that we must emerge as a new person, not just acquire information. We must emerge as a new person. An internal transformation has to take place.
So let's examine, some of the struggles along the way in this implementation process of acquiring this particular information. Like, what have you seen on your journey from, let's just say from your organization, PLF? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Brothers and sisters coming in, families coming in, they're seeking, they're happy, they're excited, they're like, yeah, Baba, we want to roll with you. You understand what I'm saying? And then you put this out first. This is the first thing that you have to do.
It's the struggle that I noticed organizationally and locally and nationally. It's a struggle in values. So a lot of us want information and knowledge, but we do not want to abandon European values. So we want to know the information because Black is in vogue, right? Black has always been the thing that people desired and adored, right? So our people want it. Oh yeah, I want to know more about this, I want to know more about that. but we do not want to abandon European values. And that's the struggle, because the values shapes your perception, and then your perception dictates your response. So the clash is always one in values. It's a struggle to get people to move from European values to African values. And I'll give a basic example. A basic example is that most people come into knowledge and they use this thing. They say, well, we need money to get out of this situation, right? We need money. Now, I understand we do live inside a capitalistic society, but it's one thing understanding that we need to develop resources and communal, I like to call it communal wealth. That's one thing. But it's another thing to have 10 people and each person is trying to get rich quick. That's the problem, right? The get rich quick mentality is a European values. And therein lies the problem, because it's not about trying to get rich quick. This trying to pick up their schemes, their little underhanded ways. We want to adopt all of that, right? And then when we try to critique it and correct it from an African point of view, it's always this internal struggle, because we are them in values. In values, we are them. And that's the struggle. When it comes to their holidays, right? For the life of us, we do not want to abandon holidays. We want their holidays. We don't want to abandon their fantasies about romance. We want to hold on to that. So when you talk about us and getting us to understand that, we didn't build complementary relationships like this, it's a struggle there, because we still got their ideals about what it means to be in a relationship, right? So we're struggling there. We got their ideals about what it means to rear our children. So that's a struggle there. We have their ideals about what it means to educate our children. It's a struggle there. So the struggle is in getting our people to abandon Europeans' ideals so we can begin to transform ourselves and become African people anew. That's the struggle.
So what we value and what we accept for value becomes the conflict in between right there.
Yes.
So I want to see how to best.
I was going to comment on Brother Bomani. He made a comment. He said, get rich quick mentality makes you want to avoid the struggle. You try to avoid the process of hard work to build a nation, which is correct. We're trying to get rich because we do not want to go through the process. And the reason we want to avoid the process because we have a misconception about work. We have a European understanding, a European concept of work. So we actually dread work. They have made us dread work because we see it from their perspective. But if you understand your way, the African way, in Jia too, you know that work for us is a reverence. We find reverence in work. For us, work is service. And we understand that a part of our responsibility is to lend our service to the uplift of our community. So we don't dread work. But these Europeans have made us dread work so much. So we are always trying to avoid work because we see work through their eyes. And that's the point that I'm making. We got to come back to us to understand who we are and how we understood things and how we saw things. If we keep looking at the world through their lenses, we are going to remain in this dire state of confusion.
Agreed. That again, that value system honing in. They call it a job instead of calling it work.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? When you demonstrate your work is on a multitude of levels. Your job is one dimensional. You see what I'm saying? Your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren can inherit your work. Your work can continue through them. They can inherit the job. You see what I'm saying? That's a job. That's a task that's one dimensional. There's a beginning and an end to it. The work is internal. We continue on the work of our ancestors. You see what I'm saying? It's like we don't say job. You see what I'm saying? So just even in that, because I know you key on words and words shape your psychology. So if you hear whether you did you do the work, that's a question, but that's also a qualifier. You see what I'm saying? Because we're looking at qualifying concepts to go from one to another. So I wanted to ask the question, going from race inclusive to race exclusive and building a race first mentality.
And therein
I,
lies,
I wanted to kind of,
therein lies
go
one of
ahead,
our
Bob.
therein lies one of our major struggles also, because we have been duped into believing that racial exclusion is bad. We think it's bad. We think, oh, that's a mortal sin to be exclusive to ourselves. So we go out of our way to prove to other people that we're not exclusive. See, for me, race first means that. It's simple as that. There is no gray area. There's no neutrality. It's none of that, right? When I say race first, I'm literally saying that thought and behavior that places the social, political, and economic interests and spiritual well-being and overall physical, material survival of Black people first. That's what I am saying. Simple as that. I'm not saying that, hey, oh yeah, we can think about these other individuals. I'm not even worried about the next person. So I don't even want to be the conversation. I'm not having that conversation because no other race of people are my concern, right? And I don't want, and you cannot make me feel bad for feeling that way. I feel great to say that, right? I'm proud when I say that, you know what I'm saying? Because I know who I am. I know what my obligations are, right? No other race of people on this earth are my concern. My concern is Black African people. Simple as that. And those who can't get there, those who not there, that's their problem. And that's their journey. You know, at some point, hopefully they get there. If they don't, cool. I don't lose any sleep. I don't die. You know why? Because I keep moving. I raise my boys to understand that it's race first. My wife understands that it's race first. And anybody that's in my circle understands that it's race first. We're not tiptoeing around. We're not jucking and jiving. We're not doing any of that. It is what it is because a war is raging right now. It's real. And it's clear that it's real. So why would I sit around and play games like I don't see what's happening? I'm very clear about what's happening out here to our people, man, across the world. I'm clear. So why would I waste my time and try to concern myself with somebody else and try to talk about some type of racial inclusion? I'm not going to do that. That's not my calling. My calling is not racial inclusion. Maybe 100 years from the day, another person be born, and that's his or her calling. But in 2021, it's race first all day long for Baba Imhotep.
That's right. That's right. So with your organization, I know that you have things going on for the families. So a situation like Tubman City, you know, we only see the doom and the gloom. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the doom and the gloom overshadows, the work that I know you're doing and some other brothers and sisters that are out there that are on the ground. How do we transition ones who grew up with a street first mentality or block first mentality into a race first mentality? How is that achieved?
It's interesting you say that. In my experience of being in the streets, the best way to achieve that is to first demonstrate that you are consistent in race first and allow them to see your consistency. Because one thing about the streets, and we can classify it how we classify it and say we want to say about it, but one thing about the streets understand the power of being consistent. They don't like, man, he's shifty. They don't like shifty people. You know what I'm saying, man, he playing 50. They don't like the 50. They can identify that. They don't like people that's not authentic. They can sniff that stuff out. So the best way to do it is to take your race first initiatives to the streets consistently and engage our people in a very authentic way, and then allow time to do what time does. They'll move in. I give an example. I was on the block about 4 days ago, and a young man pulled me up. He said, "Good brother, come here, good brother." I said, "Yeah, what's up, young?" He said, "Man, listen, if you ever want me to do some cleaning up out here, whatever, man," he said, "just let me know. I ain't got no problem. I'll clean up, man. I see the work that y'all doing. I'll clean up." And I didn't ask him to do that. All I do is just speak to him, drop a little words here and there, and stay consistent doing the work. And everything else came from him. And I think that's the best way to do it across the board. Just be sincere wherever you are at in your development. Be sincere. Don't play games. Don't lie. Don't fake. Don't front. be sincere, and I think we can change everything that we need to change. Even inside this, the quote unquote different movements that we have. If we place a greater emphasis on being sincere and authentic, we can go a long way.
Okay. I'll ask an additional question there. What about the dark-skinned Euros that masquerade within the power structure to where it looks like we are our own worst enemy, especially in a place like Tubman City and cities and states around the nation where they have an infrastructure that's insulated with people that look like decision makers that look like us.
In that regard, what happens is that's one of the reasons why we need that's one of the reasons why we need our own serious, systematic propaganda campaigns going on, because we have to forever be about the business of telling the story as it is and creating our own narrative. So those individuals need to be explained in proper context, so the larger masses will know that those people, although they look like us, are not of us. That has to be explained, because we could walk away assuming, that these individuals are here and they're doing this, when in reality, they just look like us in that position. Right? They don't have no true power. When you get down to really defining what power is and what power is about, the essentiality of power is to secure your existence. That's what power is. If you really get down to it, to go to the core of power, it enables you to secure your existence. So if anybody that's in a position that cannot make the decisions that's going to impact our lives in a self-sustaining way, then he or she has no power. If you can't make the decision that's going to determine if the water is going to get to Black people or not, you have no power. If you can't make the decision to determine if we're going to get electricity or not, you have no power. It's about sustainability. That's power. Not just looking good. Not just symbolic representation. Right? We're dealing with a very crafty and a very strategic enemy. They understand how to utilize pieces from the other side in a capacity to disillusion the other side. So they will use some Black people to disillusion Black people. Our task is to make sure that we are interpreting for our people the correct reality of what's actually taking place.
That moves me right into the next point of going from theory to implementation. So we build up and we define and we begin to educate what a race first mentality is in the individual, in the family, in the community. So now going from theory into implementation, what does a daily walk look like for brothers and sisters and families that adopt the race first mentality? What should their ways and actions, their behaviors, their attitudes, those things? What examples should we see from them?
I think the first thing we should see a strong sense of pride exuding from them, because consciousness, you got what is known as, like Dr. Malife Ashanti talks about, you got a consciousness of oppression, the consciousness of victory, which I like to call it dark consciousness and light consciousness. For the most part, you got heavy consciousness, you got consciousness that's light. If your consciousness is not exuding something that's infectious to other people, right, it's going to impact them in a negative way. So the first thing that race first people should be able to do is walk with a type of pride about themselves, not in a hardy way, not in an arrogant way, but in a very self-secured way, knowing who they are. Because oftentimes a sense of self exudes off of you. That's the first thing. The second thing, we should be about the business of making sure that we are talking Black, trying to support Black, and supporting Black. We should always give Black the benefit of the doubt, always, in all situations, because we should never assume the worst of ourselves, even if we find out that a Black person may in fact be guilty. We should never start from that premise. We have to change how we see each other. Give them the benefit of the doubt, right? All other races do that for their own kind. They do that. So we got to give each other the benefit of the doubt. You know, we got to support Black. We got to talk Black. We got to be about Black. We got to walk it. We got to support one another. Black men have to support Black women and children. Black women have to support Black men and children. Like, we have to kill and destroy the mindset that we are at odds. A race-first mentality lets us know that we cannot be at odds with one another, because our survival is contingent upon both of us, the family, being intact. So this is the walk.
Now, what about areas of cultural reinforcement? I know that you and your queen are putting together child development centers. You know, how many avenues of approach can we approach the situation of positive cultural reinforcement? Because, you know, you can learn something at home. You know, I was a victim of, I learned to love Black people at home, and I was fighting Black people as soon as I got out of the house. You understand what I'm saying? Like so in the midst of trying to balance the scales, it was love when it was love, and when it wasn't, it wasn't. So if we had some of these places of positive cultural reinforcement, because we know we ain't going to our enemy schools to get that, you know, way stations along the way to reinforce what you learn at home.
Yes. And the key to that, and we still as a people, I think we may have a few examples throughout the country, but not a lot. But the key in that regard is we have to really build community. And by community, I don't mean neighborhoods, just anybody. I mean, we need to build spaces where the Black people that's practicing the race-first mentality and practicing to be better African people are in congregation with other Black people that's doing the same, and they share the same values, they share the same ideology, they understand the same, they're practicing the same spiritual practices across the board, right? That is how we actually reinforce. So then the family, what's taking place inside the house, is reinforced inside that particular community, because what happens in the community, we have social time together, we have men time together, we have women time together, we have children time together, and our children are with children that are hearing and learning the same things they're learning. So it is reinforced in the outside world if we build that space. Community is an insulator. That's what community is. It insulates you. By installation, I don't mean segregating. I don't mean that we separated from anything, because for now we are in the USA, but it insulates us from those ideals and concepts that are foreign or contrary to ours. That's what community does. So within community, you have to begin to build your own institutions. So like you say, yes, my wife and her sister, Mama Nikiwe, you know, they began to build, you know, Watoto Development Center, probably about 7-8 years ago, give or take, probably longer than that. But they began to build that, you know, so we have that, you know, where children can come and get exposed. You know, so then in addition to that, you need the actual school, which we're still working on trying to do the school. You need the actual programmatic side, which we got a nonprofit youth organization for that. Then you need your study class, which we got a study class we do it every Sunday. So all our social activities, events, and institutions, we got to build within the community, so it minimizes our time leaving the community, because a community should be self-sustaining. This is how you reinforce what you teach in the home is reinforced in the community.
That's a beautiful point. And this is what this was before the infiltration. You know, brothers and sisters could get everything that they needed within their community. You know, if you went outside, you know, you went outside, but you know, you were warned. You didn't have, it wasn't a need for it. It was curiosity or rebelliousness to where you left. You understand what I'm saying? Because we know, you know, who each other is in our community. You know, we can de-escalate, right wrongs, on the spot corrections, things like that. But when you start to venture outside of that place, other entities might see you as animal. You understand, or threat, whatever the case may be. So, your duty and responsibility was to fortify, protect, and defend your communities from infiltration.
That's right.
So now we got the race first implementation from the cultivation to the implementation. Now we're looking at mobilization. How do we spread this good news of this race first mentality across the country and across the globe?
Great question. We do it. It's through propaganda. And if you notice, if you watch, well, I'm quite sure you do know, you watch, you pay attention. So that's the reason why all of our initiatives that we're doing, they're race first initiatives. So like this Saturday, May the 8th, we have the race first grub in the hood. So we out on North Avenue and Druid Avenue. Anybody from Baltimore, they know what that is. They know where that's at. So we're in the heart of the hood. But what we're gonna be doing? Feeding the people, engaging the people in a race first initiative, giving out race first bracelets and engaging and talking to them. It's the symbology. June the 12th, we got the race first youth explosion. And what is that? That is an athletic event of endurance and agility and mobility where we bring in all the youth together, ages 5 to 15, and we allow them to engage in different types of games to test their endurance, agility, athletics, relay racing, sprint, tug of war, running, high jump, throwing up the javelin. We doing all of that, but we doing it in the spirit of race first. So before these games even take place, these children will have to recite a race first creed. And the creed lets them know why they're doing these games. So for us, it's not about leisure and fun. That's not why we're doing this. For us, it's about preparation and fun. It's a difference. Preparation for what? All our children need to be prepared for war. Not a single black child should come into the world in this era of time and we do not implant into their minds the concept of war. If we are missing that conversation for our children, we are doing them a disservice. Not a single black child should not be introduced to the idea of war and specifically who we are at war with. Every black child should know that. Every black child, right? Because what that does, that begins to put them in terms of their consciousness on the same level, right? So those race first initiatives are what we're doing to raise national consciousness. Because in August, we back at the race first rally again. But this year, not only is the race first rally going to be in Baltimore, Tupper City, we also going to have it in what? Mississippi this year. Mississippi. In addition to that, we're in talks with Arkansas. So chances are they'll be on board. So this year, it's going to be about 3 race first rallies taking place at the same time on the same day, right? Why? Because you got to raise national consciousness. This is what Frantz Fanon talked about in The Wretched of the Earth, when he was talking about the tribes and the clans, and he was saying there was a lack of national consciousness. Because right now, as a people, we don't all see ourselves the same. And it's hard to get us to come together and work on different initiatives because we think we got to lose some type of organizational autonomy. So what's the next best thing, right? The way you can keep all organizational autonomy, all I'm saying is this: let's all link all of our organizing efforts under the banner of race first. That's it. Because we do that, we begin to raise the consciousness and we begin to do what? Identify with one another on the basis of race first. And that's enough. Because once we can project that symbolic gesture of unity on a national level, we can begin to make some serious motion. Right now on the national level, the movement that we are part of is fragmented. And on the national level, it's weak. And people see the weakness. We got to figure out ways to seal the cracks. And right now, one of the best ways is for all of us who are already doing race first work to just pick the banner up and use the watchword, race first. That's the best thing right now, to get us together on a national level so we can begin to make the type of motion that we need to make in terms of mobilizing our people for organization, so we can be organized for power. So let's get organized. It's the symbolic gesture behind race first.
Now I gotta ask you, what's your feeling like, with this, situation? With, you gave us the race first rallies, and now expanding into this national consciousness. How does it feel for you to see, the eagerness, the inquiry and things like that after, so many years of dedication and hard work, couple decades in, all of this sacrifice and things like that. What does it look like to see these things on the horizon coming together?
It's optimistic. It's optimistic, and it's an indication of what we can do. So when I'm having these conversations and I'm seeing that folk are interested, we're having these conversations and we're moving in that direction, it keeps me more enthusiastic, and it gives me that energy to keep going, to keep pushing. Like you say, for me, doing this work on all levels, I started when I was incarcerated, but I've been doing this work since 1993. It's 2021. So I'm coming up on 30 years of doing this work, but to have these conversations and see how it's about to roll out on a national level, and even in Tubman City with the different groups and things like that, it's a relief. It's a relief because it says that we are ready to be mobilized, right? We are ready to be mobilized, and we understand the need to have the consciousness at the same level so we can understand the direction we're going in. And right now, there haven't been any major pushbacks. It's just about just helping people understand the reasoning for it and how it can happen, where they're at. So far so good.
So with Black August coming up, if there are people that are interested, that are watching, and they wise, they may not want to jump the gun this particular year, but August 2022, they want to be involved and they want to host a race first rally in their city. What do they need to do?
They need to contact me directly through Facebook. There's an email they can go to, racefirstmovement@gmail.com. They can email me there. Hit me through IG. And just let me know that's what they want to do. And then what I do is I sit down, we meet, Zoom or whatever, we have the conversation. Because the one thing I understand, the definitions and concepts, we got to be saying the same thing so we can stay in alignment. So we can't be saying different things. So considering the fact that I took the initiative to put together what I feel and think is a very workable definition of race first and the principles and things of that nature, I go over that with the group that I'm talking to see if they are in alignment, if they can get with these principles and this definition and these concepts. And in most cases, when we go through it, everybody like, man, I love it. It's all on point and cool. And then once I let them know how we did it here, I'm not saying you got to do it the way we did it. You know what I'm saying? But however you want to do it, you need to know your logistics where you're at. But we are willing from our side to act in the role of technical assistance. So like the flyer, we can do the flyer for you. As I'm further fundraising for Race First, I can help you get physical flyers to pass out. As I'm further fundraising, we're willing to get wristbands for those individuals and ship the wristbands to them. So from our side, we are willing, and we are helping the groups that's coming on board so their Race First rally can be a success as well. So that's what we're doing.
I love that concept, and I love the fact that it's like a rollout this year. You see what I'm saying? Y'all got this going on this month, the next month. You see what I'm saying? Like a build up, and opportunities to reinforce, because people got that goldfish memory. You see what I'm saying? I say Black folks got that 51st date mentality. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta tell them something the next day all over again. So that build up that I'm seeing in this momentum. I love the word movement, because movement is proof of life.
Right.
from the smallest to the grandiose. Movement is proof of life. You know, now we're dealing with effective and intentional movement. That's another thing. You see what I'm saying? We get you moving first, and now we're dealing with this being directed in an intentional manner. You see what I'm saying? You're not just
Right.
moving just to be moving. You know, now we're moving in an effective type of manner. You know, and then we're moving in a manner that's, you know, both strategic and effective, and then that's pleasing in the sight of our ancestors and our creator. That's a beautiful thing right there. You know,
Yes.
when we return to that, you know, it begins foundationally with the right intent and purpose behind it, and those in position who have been qualified, you know, to direct your movement. See what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yes. Yes. No
So
doubt.
I want to end with these great books and your organization, and we kind of go back through some of the highlights. You know what I mean? I love these books. You know, these are my go-tos. I got another one I want to read real quick from African Manhood, and it says the first law, self-help. It's on page 25. It says the 21st century African man must be able to help himself by doing for himself and African people. That's self-help right there.
Yes.
And in so many dimensions. You see what I'm saying? Like so many dimensions. I don't think we realize sometimes exactly what that means. You see what I'm saying? So we said the 21st century African man must be able to help himself by doing for himself and African people.
Yes. And if you notice, like throughout the book, I always emphasize, I try to make it clear that what we do for self, we got to be willing to do for our people, family, and community. It's we are
Right.
entwined. Because I never want us to think and believe that we have no responsibility to family and community, which we do. And the more we understand that, the better we will be. The more we come to understand it, the better we begin. Now, I get that things can be a little challenging at times, and things can be a little difficult, but that's by design. And that's the reason why it's very imperative that we consistently study so we can deepen our awareness, so we can become very crystal clear about what's happening to African people and what have happened to African people. Because the ignorance surrounding the processes that we have been put through to make us dumb in terms of who we are is severe. It's very severe. And if we don't have the knowledge of what have happened to us, we're going to always misperceive us. And those misperceptions become so overwhelming at times that we begin to see ourselves as being disconnected, one from the other. And that slows us down as a people. We have to figure out ways to see our relationship one to the other and our connectivity. We have to look for that. We have to strive for that. We have to forge that. Because historically, when you look at our successes as a people, wherever we've been in the world, you look at our successes, look at our thriving communities, you see us doing it as a community, not one individual, not separate people. You see us function, operating as a group. There's a group dynamic that moved us from one layer to the next layer to the next layer in terms of the levels. Brother Africa, not this year. We won't be going down Atlanta this year. Usually in the past, we go a year. We may return in 2022. But that's a great question. Because this year is a race first theme this year.
I want to read from this book real quick. 18th law, perception determines response. I love this. Perception determines response. However you perceive a situation will determine how you respond to that situation. Therefore, your perception of life determines how you respond to life. Your response to something or someone is always dictated by your perception. Thus, if you perceive it to be danger, then you will respond to it as danger. Likewise, if you perceive it to be harmless, then you will respond to it as harmless. Perception is inextricably tied to response. You respond to something according to how you perceive it to be. Thus, perception affects behavior.
Yes, and let me expound on that, right? That's the reason why we respond incorrectly to Europeans, because we perceive them wrong. Our perception of Europeans is wrong. So because our perception is wrong, we respond wrong. Our response is off. Our response to Europeans is not consistent with the behaviors that Europeans have demonstrated historically. Not. And because how we perceive. Now, in that same book, I forget which law it is offhand, but there's a law that says your conceptual reality dictates perceptual reality. So how we perceive is dictated by our concepts. So if my concept of Europeans is that they are nice and harmless and friendly, if that's my concept, then that's how I'm going to perceive them. If my concept of Europeans is that they are warlike, destructive, and dangerous, then I'll perceive them as such, and that'll dictate my response to them. So we got to understand that those relationships and how it's connected. But yes, no doubt, man, how we perceive something determines how we're going to respond to it. We walking down the street, if you don't perceive a dangerous situation as danger, you're going to walk right into it. But that's the basis of culture. See, culture teaches you what is and what isn't. Culture lets you know where to go and not to go. Culture tells you that you can't go that far if you understand culture. That's the basis of it. It's your insulator. It's your protector, right? It's your life system. Culture is your life system. It allows you to navigate through life. So if you don't have your culture, you're not going to understand what's detrimental to you. The culture gives you that. Culture tells you who your enemies are. Culture tells you who your friends are, who your allies may be if you want to use allies. Culture gives you all of that. But when you lack culture, you're going to be in disarray in all those areas. You're gonna make enemies friends conceptually and friends enemies conceptually. And that's what we do in our relationships. We have good relationships with good people, but since we're so disarray, we misperceive good people wrongly and destroy good relationships.
Yeah. Perception. I was in the military, and in the military, they said perception is reality. So they could thwart it. They could thwart it, and they can change the perception. My perception of this situation is, and that becomes reality based off of subordination. And when you're in a place where insubordination is not tolerated, whatever they deem insubordinate leaves open for attack. So now we're dealing with, reaction versus response. In this virtual world, everybody's reacting to everything. They got these videos, they got reaction to this, reaction to that. So you're not even in the mind frame to combat anything. If you in that react state, you're not able to effectively respond appropriately. If there's a threat, you're supposed to respond appropriately to the threat versus reacting to the threat. Because you can do anything when you react. When you respond, you have a strategic action or implementation strategy that you're going to use when you see a threat. You see what I'm saying? So that's a reaction versus a response. So when people want to make a valid point, they say, okay, you finished, allow me to respond. You see what I'm saying? They're not saying like, oh, let me just react off of what you're saying. There's thought, and thought, is followed up by an action. You see what I'm saying? So if you're looking at, a proper action, it's a proper response to whatever the stimuli that's out there. You see what I'm saying? So I wanted to pause that real quick and then read these principles real quick from this great book right here, and I'll allow you to respond after I looked at the principles real quick. Number one, to promote Pan-African unity. Number two, to establish economic empowerment. Number three, to establish African-centered educational institutions. Number four, to establish holistic healthcare / preventative institutions. Number five, to combat white supremacy. Number six, to combat injustice. Number seven, to fight for self-determination. Number eight, to fight for nationhood.
Those those principles there are essential. They are essential, and we try to lay them out in a way so we can see the things that we should be doing. In terms of educational institutions, education is essentially about socialization. We have to be educated differently. We have to be socialized differently. And that's only going to take place when we have our own institutions that's going to allow us to do that within. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have institutions out here, because a lot of times the language can come across as if we're saying that there's a deficit. I'm not saying there's a deficit. I am saying that we, like case in point, in Baltimore City, right? In Baltimore City alone, Tubman City, you got what we're doing, you got other organizations are doing things, but we do not have a full-time institution where people can put their children in, and they're going to a school that's run by African people that think like African, that are Africans, that's going to promote what it means to be African. So that's what I'm saying. So we got to be about the business of building those. And wherever we are at organizationally, if we're not building it, then we should be trying to support another organization that is building it, or collaborating with an organization that's already doing it. There's no way we should not be affiliated with each one of those principles. Economic development, we talk about cooperative economic development, right? Not these capitalistic ventures, but how can we as people begin to engage in economics from a standpoint that's more consistent with what it means to be African than European. That's what get us jammed up. When you think about the African countries that came into power after 1957, which were great men for the most part, but they still began to emulate some of the European institutions. So that, not because, and it's not to say they was bad men, it was good men, but we got to be about the institutions, got to be reflective of who we are, so we can't be talking about, well, are you going to do a one-party system or two-party system? That don't even got to be a part of our conversation, because that's their paradigm. I'm not having that conversation. You know what I'm saying? So what we're going to do? Is it going to be socialism or capitalism? That's their paradigm again. I'm not having that conversation. You know what I'm saying? So my thinking is, to develop an economic process that allow us from a corporate level to build communal wealth, because a governing process should factor in all of its citizens. So we should be trying to figure out how can we build a situation that's going to make sure all of us are okay. Not just a few, not just some. We should not be thinking about building a process that allows 10 people to usurp all the wealth. There's nowhere in the world. That's an unjust system. There's nowhere in the world you can say you love capitalism. It's an unjust system. Now, I'm not talking about, because a lot of times we talk about capitalism, we think that Europeans originated currency, and we think Europeans originated exchange. They did not. So a lot of times we think that because a person is still engaged in business, we think that the person is still practicing capitalism. Europeans did not invent, currency. We've always had a form of currency pre-Europeans. And we've always had a way in which we did exchange. So that's not them. Under capitalism, that's them. But there's a way in which we can set up and engage in business or trade, rather, that does not necessarily have to be vampirish, like capitalism is, or dog eat dog. It has to be like that. So for me, it's about building something that's going to allow us to be able to work together and make sure everybody is okay. That's what it comes down to. And lastly, nation building. Everything we do should be about nation building. Everything we do should be about nation building, and Africa should be on our horizon. If we ain't thinking about Africa, we have not. If we're not thinking about Africa, we have not risen high enough in our consciousness. There's no way that we should do this work and not factor Africa in the equation. Because at the end of the day, Africa got to get free. Our homeland has to be free. And all of our efforts have to lend towards that endeavor. So nation building, sovereignty is ultimately where it's at. Race first becomes instrumental in the process, because the only way we're going to think about sovereignty as a people is we gotta relearn who we are and come to love ourselves as a people. So through race first, we come to understand the importance of putting ourselves first. And once we understand the importance of putting ourselves first, we can begin to realize the necessity of having our own homeland. And then we'll start moving towards that. So race first is instrumental in the sovereignty movement.
All right, so the last book, you notice I went red, black, and green
Yeah, I
on
noticed.
purpose. Essential Duties of a New African Revolutionary Vanguard. Music to my ears. First duty, protect your organization. I think I got to say that twice. Protect your organization. 2, engage African people. I think I got to say that twice. Engage African people. 3, conduct study groups. I might have to say that 3 times. Conduct study groups. Conduct study groups. 4, organize African people. 5th duty, teach and propagate scientific Pan-Africanism. 6, promote historical cultural awareness. 7, promote and demonstrate economic self-sufficiency. 8, build strong networks. 9, promote your organization. 10, recruit.
Yes. It's because what I am attempting to do here is, because too often people come into different organizations and movements and things of that nature, and they actually become very idle. They don't do things. So I'm trying to let people know, like we have duties that we have to execute, things you got to do. First and foremost, if you're part of an organization and that organization is doing something for your soul, right, then you should protect it. If you join a group and that group transform you and make you a better person, you indebted to that group because it made you better. So you protect it. You protect it. Don't allow someone to just attack it. Don't allow someone to just try to tear it down. You protect that organization. Promote it. Build the study groups. If you don't know how to do that, then link up with the study group that's already operational. But we need to be in study groups so we can develop ourselves, to develop our consciousness. You got to do that. That's those things are very important. Promote historical and cultural awareness, and that's there because we have to make sure our people know who they are. So we it's like this. If we was inside our own land, uncolonized, unenslaved, we would always be basking within our own culture and history. It would be consistent and constantly. Therefore, we have to make sure we are doing it as much as we can in this land. Because when we're not practicing our stuff, we are taking in their stuff. There's no neutrality. It's either you practicing your own culture, taking in your own stuff, or you taking in somebody else's stuff. And if you take it in their stuff more than your own, what you gonna give out? You're gonna give out more of them than yourself. And that's what happens. You know, we gotta promote culture, promote history, talk about it as much as you could, practice it as much as you could, put the pictures up, you know, wear the clothes, watch the movies, watch the lectures, keep the music going. Do not miss a beat in pushing that history and that culture. It's very important. And that's what it comes down to. And lastly, but not least is, you know, I talk about the need to recruit, right? Everything has to grow. It has to grow. So the organization grows through membership. It grows through membership. And the stronger the membership, if the membership is evolving, getting better, and transforming and changing, then the stronger the organization. If the organization is strong, then it enhances its abilities to be effective in its service to African people. So that's what it's about. Get people involved, help them to grow and evolve, make the organization strong, work that much more harder for African people. That's the process.
I love it. Baba, once again, I'm thankful for your time, you know, for the jewels that you dropped and for the initiatives that you have implemented over the years and looking to continue to implement a strong, uncompromising, life-affirming, race-first mentality. So final remarks, and if you want to talk about, you know, PLM or any of your initiatives as you close, and also how people can support and things of that nature before we go, and anything else that you have coming up, and reminding us again about these events that you already have that we got scheduled.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate it. As I said when I opened up, Now It's Born, like your work is instrumental. It's important. It's valuable. We need these platforms, and you have built a platform that makes it possible for the correct knowledge and information to get out. My voice is going out into the world because of you, and for that I'm eternally grateful. The work that I've done over the years, I came home from prison in November the 4th, 2004. So I've been home from prison coming up on 17 years. And in those 17 years, I've been doing this work. I met my wife in March 2005. So essentially, I met her a couple months after I came home. And she's been beside my side the entire time. You know, we've been together 16 years. And I could not have done any of this without her. And in addition to her, I could not have done any of this without those great men and women of PLM. You know, they've been rocking and rolling the entire time. They've been taking hits. They've been taking blows. You know, we've been getting knocked down. And then we got a small group of supporters that wrap around us as well. You know, without those people, we could not do none of this right here. So those initiatives are largely executed by those people. Mama Harmony, Mama Neonu, Baba Anani, Baba Harani, Baba Tamim, you know what I'm saying, Baba Adisa, Baba Chipo. Then, like I said, we got the supporters around us, you know, so you got Baba Shaka, you got Mama Gina, you got Mama Jaquetta, you got Mama Danielle, you got Mama Shantae, you got Mama Zinga, you got all these good people, Mama Shabazz, right? These are the people, and young Bubba, you got a young Bubba Dakar, you got young Shabazz, right? It's just so many, you know what I'm saying? Then it's a bunch of silent men. I can't put their names out there, right? But they silent men because they move in silence, because that's their duty and that's their job. But they know who they are, and I know who they are. And we could not have done none of this without any of those individuals. So I'll be remiss if I don't mention them and say that and shoot that out there, right? In order to get the work done, you need a good team. You need a good team, and you got to be able to recognize that team and hold that team up. Black men in leadership. I'm going to say this again. Black men in leadership need to be married. We should not allow black men to run around no more in leadership for years, talking about nation building, and they don't got a black woman. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable because when you reduce a nation, when you reduce it down, you get to the couple, the black woman and the black man, right? So how is it that we're allowing, you know, black men to run around, you know, not with a woman, right? They need to be in leadership. That's what I would say, right? And I stand by that. I stand on that right there. We got to do better. Being in a relationship with a woman and you marry to her, complementarity, right? It builds character, it builds strength, it makes you better. It makes you better. It builds you up, and you need a woman. And I think every ancestor, in ancestral realm for my wife, because she holds me down, she rocks with me, she run through the hellfire with me. And when I fall off sometime, it's her picking me up, it's her tapping me, it's her checking me, it's her pulling me back, man. It's her. And then I got a team around me that get angry at me at times, and they let me know they're angry. And you need people that's going to get angry at you and let you know they're angry. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you centered. So, close word. Oh, Bob, there's a second edition to that book out too. My manhood book, it just came out today. The second edition to the manhood book. So the second edition got a purple cover. Yes, it's a second edition to it. So race first, May the 8th, Grub in the Hood. If you're in Tubman City, come on out. Drew Avenue and North Avenue, 3 p.m. Come be a part of that. Race first, we engage in the hood. June 12th, Drew Hill Park, 1 p.m. Come out there, be a part of that. Bring your child, register your child. To register your child, you got to go to the PLM website, which is www.plm95.org. Race First Youth Explosion. You can register your child 5 to 15 to take part in that Race First initiative. We are thinking conceptually about doing a Race First community reunion August the 1st. And that will serve as a kickoff for Black August, a Race First community reunion. Because a lot of times when you're doing this work, you can be in the same city and you don't see each other that much. So at least we know that once a year we're going to be able to convene for this major cookout, August the 1st, launching off Black August. So that's what's coming down the pipes. August 28th, Baltimore City in Mississippi. The Race First Rally, let's get organized. The Race First Rally is not a protest. The Race First Rally is primarily about getting organized, organizing us organizationally, and organizing our people to be involved in organization so we can be organized for power. So at the base of it, it's about organizing. Let's get organized. Because the greater the organization, the greater the impact. And that's what Race First is about. We push an organization, and also Race First becomes the best means through which we can raise national consciousness, because it becomes a watchword that we can use, we can identify with, and we can begin to promote, to demonstrate the symbolic justice of us being unified as a people, so we can begin to move to change the things that need to be changed. So I'll end there. You can find me on Facebook at Baba Imhotep. I'm on Instagram at Imhotep Fatiu. I'm not hard to find. You can connect with me. You can connect with me through the website, PLM website. All that works. And let's get this work done. If you out there and you want to do a Race First rally where you're at, there's still enough time. Reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. And let's figure out how we can make it happen. And then I say Race First. As always, my brother, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed this platform. Looking forward to coming back real soon so we can keep the conversation going.
Baba, I definitely want to link with you and link with have this be a way station for promotional tool, proper propaganda campaign, for each event. So after this event, you want to come back on and talk about what happened on May the 8th. You want to come back on. You want to talk about what happened June the 12th. You want to come back on as we get closer to the Race First rallies, and get the folks on from Mississippi and whomever else is involved. Have them come on, share their stories, talk about the area, and their inclination towards this kind of walk. I think that'd be phenomenal. So just let me know. This is your home outside of your home.
Appreciate it, my brother. And I most definitely hopefully that's a nice thing. So hopefully once I get everybody together, and that'll be a nice show to bring them all on to talk about how they feel about being a part of the Race First rallies and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll work towards that.
All right, Baba. Again, thank you for your time. Love and honor to you and your family, as always.
All right, peace.
All right, peace. Race first.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them that in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get
And
back
that
to the
motive
gritty
is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.